I want you to imagine something with me right now. Close your eyes for just a moment if you can. Picture yourself standing in front of a mirror, and in that mirror, you see someone who has finally broken free from the chains of financial struggle. You see someone who wakes up without that knot of anxiety in their stomach. You see someone who looks at their bank account and feels peace instead of panic. That person is you, and the bridge between where you are now and that reflection isn't what you think it is. It isn't another job, another degree, another business idea, or another stroke of luck. The bridge is something so simple, so available to you right this very second, that when I tell you what it is, part of you might not believe me. But I'm going to ask you to stay with me anyway, because what I'm about to share with you changed my life, and it has changed the lives of countless others who were exactly where you are right now. You see, money is not what you think it is. I know that sounds strange coming from someone who spent decades studying the mind and its relationship to prosperity, but it's true. Money is not paper. It's not numbers in an account. It's not even really a thing at all in the way you've been taught to think about things. Money is a response. It's an echo. It's the universe's way of matching the frequency you're broadcasting every single day with your thoughts, your words, and most importantly, the way you speak to and about money itself. And here's what almost broke my heart when I discovered it. Most people are unknowingly cursing their money away every single day with the very words they speak. Right now, as I'm talking to you, there are words leaving your mouth and thoughts running through your mind that are actively, powerfully pushing money away from you, and you don't even know you're doing it. You've been doing it so long it feels normal. It feels like truth. But it isn't truth. It's a habit. And any habit can be changed. I discovered something extraordinary in my years of studying the subconscious mind and the laws that govern our reality. I discovered that money, like everything else in this universe, is alive in a sense. Not alive like you and me, but responsive, intelligent. It moves towards certain vibrations and away from others. And the most powerful vibration you can emit toward money isn't through effort or force or grinding yourself into dust. It's through the way you address it, the way you speak to it, the way you relate to it when no one else is listening. Now I can already hear what some of you are thinking. You're thinking this sounds like magical thinking. You're thinking this sounds like I'm going to tell you to whisper sweet nothings to dollar bills and suddenly you'll be rich. But that's not what this is. What I'm sharing with you is based on a principle that's older than any religion, more reliable than any economic system, and more powerful than any external circumstance you're currently facing. It's the principle that your subconscious mind, which controls about 95% of your daily behavior and reality creation, does not know the difference between what you vividly imagine and emotionalize and what is physically real. Your subconscious mind is the garden. Your words are the seeds. And money is one of the crops that grows from those seeds, whether you intended to plant them or not. So, here's what we're going to do together today. I'm going to show you exactly how to speak to money in a way that causes the universe to respond, not might respond, not could respond, will respond, because the universe operates on laws just as reliable as gravity. You don't hope gravity will work when you drop something. You know it will. And in the same way, when you align your inner speech with the laws of mind, prosperity doesn't become a hope. It becomes an inevitable result. I'm going to walk you through the specific mistakes you're making right now that are blocking your flow. I'm going to share with you the exact phrases and inner conversations that open the floodgates. And I'm going to give you a practice, a simple daily practice, that if you do it consistently with feeling and faith, will transform your financial reality in ways that will absolutely astonish you. But before we get into the how, I need you to understand the why. I need you to understand what's actually happening beneath the surface of your financial struggles. Because once you see it, you can never unsee it. And once you unsee it, everything changes. You were not born afraid of money. You were not born believing you weren't worthy of it, or that it was hard to get, or that rich people are greedy, or that you have to sacrifice your soul to earn it. You learned all of that. Every single limiting belief you have about money was programmed into you by someone else who learned it from someone else who learned it from someone else, going back generations. You inherited a financial blueprint the same way you inherited the color of your eyes. Except unlike your eyes, this blueprint can be rewritten. And it must be rewritten if you want your outer world to change, because your outer world is nothing more than a mirror of your inner world, nothing more and nothing less. Every person who has ever experienced lasting financial abundance, And I mean the kind of abundance that doesn't come and go based on circumstances, the kind that feels effortless and natural, has discovered this secret. You must change your relationship with money from one of chasing to one of attracting, from one of fear to one of love, from one of separation to one of unity. And that change happens first and most powerfully in the privacy of your own mind, in the words you speak when no one is listening, in the conversations you have with money itself. Because here's what most people don't realize. Money is always listening. Not in some mystical, supernatural sense, but through the very real mechanism of your subconscious mind. Every time you say, "I can't afford it," your subconscious hears that as an instruction. Every time you call yourself broke, you're giving your deeper mind a blueprint to follow. Every time you speak of money with resentment or fear, you're programming yourself for more of the same experience. Think about how you talk to someone you love. You don't greet your beloved with suspicion and hostility. You don't approach your closest friend with fear and resentment. Yet this is exactly how most people relate to money, day after day, thought after thought. And then they wonder why money seems to avoid them, why opportunities slip through their fingers, why financial success feels like trying to hold water in a clenched fist. I want you to try something radical, starting today. Begin speaking to money the way you would speak to an honored guest you're hoping will visit your home. With warmth, with welcome, with genuine appreciation for its presence and its possibilities. When you pay a bill, don't resent the outflow. Say, "I'm grateful I have this money to give. More is coming to me now, pressed down and running over." When you earn income, don't immediately think of all the places it needs to go. First, acknowledge the good. Money flows to me easily. I am a channel for prosperity. This isn't about pretending or lying to yourself. This is about recognizing a fundamental truth that operates whether you believe it or not. Your words have creative power. The Bible tells us that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Every spiritual tradition teaches that speech is a form of creation. Modern psychology confirms that self-talk shapes neural pathways and determines behavior patterns. When you say, "I am poor," you're not describing reality, you're creating it. When you say, "I can't afford this," you're not being realistic, you're being prophetic. You're prophesying your own limitation into existence. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But Dr. Murphy, I need to be honest about my situation. I need to face facts. And I understand that impulse. But there's a profound difference between acknowledging current circumstances and declaring them permanent. You can acknowledge where you are without claiming it as your identity. You can say, "My bank account currently shows a certain number," without adding, "and I am broke." One is an observation. The other is a declaration of selfhood. Think about this carefully. When a seed is planted in the ground, it doesn't announce to the universe, "I am buried. I am trapped. I am surrounded by darkness." No, that seed simply begins the process of transformation. It uses every resource available, including the very darkness around it, to push toward light. You must do the same with your words. Every statement you make about yourself is either planting seeds of abundance or seeds of poverty. There is no neutral ground. Your subconscious mind doesn't debate or analyze, it accepts and manifests. I've counseled thousands of people over the years, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, those who change their speech change their lives. I've seen it happen so many times it ceased to surprise me long ago. A man who begins saying, "Money flows to me easily and naturally," will find opportunities appearing that were invisible to him before. A woman who replaces "I'm so tired" with "I am energized and renewed" will discover reserves of vitality she didn't know existed. This isn't magical thinking. This is cause and effect operating at the level of consciousness. Your words don't just describe your mental state, they create it. They're not the map, they're the territory itself. So begin today to monitor your speech as though your life depends on it, because it does. When you catch yourself about to speak lack, poverty, or limitation, stop, pause, reframe. Choose words that align with the life you're building, not the circumstances you're leaving behind. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge the quality of your statements. It doesn't fact check. It doesn't debate. It simply accepts what you consistently feed it and begins to manifest circumstances that match those patterns. When you repeatedly say, "I can't afford this," your subconscious interprets that as an instruction. It begins to filter your perception, your opportunities, your decisions through that lens of lack. You'll miss the sale. You'll overlook the side opportunity. You'll talk yourself out of the investment that could multiply your resources. But when you shift to, I am attracting abundant resources or money flows to me easily and naturally, you're issuing a completely different set of instructions. Your subconscious begins scanning for opportunities, solutions, creative pathways to income. The external world hasn't changed yet, but your internal navigation system has been reprogrammed. I've watched this transformation countless times. A person who constantly spoke of their failing health, their declining energy, their inevitable aging, suddenly shifts their language. They begin affirming, every day, in every way, I am becoming healthier and stronger. Within weeks, their entire demeanor changes. They stand differently. They make different choices about food, rest, movement. The body responds to the new mental blueprint. This isn't magical thinking divorced from action. This is aligning your mental patterns with the life you intend to create, so that your actions flow naturally from that alignment. Think about someone training for a marathon. If they constantly tell themselves, I'm not a runner, I hate running, I'll never finish, what happens? Every training session becomes torture. They skip workouts, they quit before race day. But if they affirm, I am becoming stronger with every step, my body is built for endurance, they create psychological momentum. The training is still challenging, but their mind supports the effort instead of sabotaging it. Your words are laying tracks. Your thoughts and actions will follow those tracks. If the tracks lead toward limitation, suffering, and failure, that's where you'll arrive. If they lead toward expansion, health, and success, you'll find yourself naturally moving in that direction. This is why I urge you to become ruthlessly aware of your habitual phrases. What do you say when you wake up? When you look in the mirror? When you discuss your finances, your relationships, your future? Are you building or demolishing? Your words are the architects of your tomorrow. Every sentence you speak about yourself is a blueprint being handed to your subconscious mind, and that mind, faithful servant that it is, will construct exactly what you've designed. I've watched people sabotage their own healing with their tongues. A woman comes to me, suffering from chronic pain, and within 5 minutes of our conversation, she's told me 8 times, I'm always sick. I've always been this way. My mother was sickly too, it runs in the family. Do you see what she's doing? She's not describing her condition, she's times prescribing times it. She's writing it into her future with every repetition. The subconscious mind doesn't argue. It doesn't say, well, actually you were quite healthy that summer in 1952. No. It simply accepts, always sick, noted. I'll make sure that continues. Now contrast this with another person. I encountered a man who'd been given a devastating medical diagnosis. When people asked how he was, he never said, I'm dying, or I'm battling cancer. Instead, he would say, I'm healing. Every day, my body is returning to perfect health. Was he denying reality? No. He was choosing times which reality to feed. He understood that his words were seeds, and he refused to plant weeds in his garden. This is where most people stumble. They think honesty means speaking every negative thought that crosses their mind. I'm just being realistic, they say, as they affirm their limitations over breakfast. I'm just venting, they explain, as they rehearse their grievances to anyone who'll listen. But there's a profound difference between acknowledging a present circumstance and cementing it into permanence. You can recognize that you're currently experiencing financial difficulty without declaring, I'm always broke, money hates me, I'll never get ahead. The first is observation, the second is incantation, dark magic you're performing against yourself. Your subconscious is listening to everything, not just your formal prayers or affirmations, but your casual complaints, your self-deprecating jokes, your throwaway comments. When you say, I'm so stupid after a small mistake, your subconscious hears a command. When you joke, I'm terrible with money, you're giving an instruction. When you sigh and say, nothing ever works out for me, you've just handed down a verdict that your faithful subconscious will execute. The question becomes, what are you commanding right now? Your subconscious doesn't judge your commands. It doesn't say, wait, that sounds self-defeating, maybe I shouldn't follow through. No, it accepts, it believes, it acts. This is why awareness becomes your most powerful tool. You must become conscious of the habitual phrases you use, the mental loops you run, The stories you tell yourself in the shower, in traffic, before bed. I've worked with people who couldn't understand why opportunities kept slipping through their fingers. We'd sit down, and I'd ask them to simply monitor their thoughts for one day. Just observe. Don't change anything yet, just watch. And what they discovered shocked them. One man realized, he said, "That's just my luck, at least 20 times a day." Another woman caught herself thinking, "I'm not smart enough for that," whenever a new possibility appeared. These weren't grand declarations. They were tiny, almost invisible mental habits, but they were running the show. Think of it this way. If you had an employee who constantly sabotaged your projects, would you keep them on staff? Of course not. Yet most of us employ a committee of negative thoughts that work against us every single day, and we never fire them. We don't even give them a performance review. The beautiful part? You can change this right now. Not tomorrow. Not when conditions are perfect. Right now. You start by introducing a new command. When you catch yourself saying, "I can't afford that," pause, reframe it. "I'm finding ways to afford what I need." When the thought, "I'm not confident," appears, you don't fight it. You simply replace it with, "I am becoming more confident every day." Notice I didn't say lie to yourself. I said reframe. Your subconscious responds to persistent, emotionally charged direction. And this is where most people stumble. They try affirmations for 3 days, don't see $1 million appear in their mailbox, and declare the whole thing nonsense. But think about it this way. If you've spent 20, 30, 40 years telling yourself you're not good enough, do you really expect 3 half-hearted affirmations to reverse that? It's like expecting one salad to undo 20 years of poor eating habits. The subconscious mind learns through repetition and emotion. That's the formula. Not just words, but words charged with feeling, repeated until they become the new baseline. You wouldn't go to the gym once and expect to be in peak physical condition. You understand that muscles need consistent training. Your mental patterns are no different. Let me give you a practical example. I worked with a woman, let's call her Linda, who had convinced herself she was terrible with money. Every time a bill came, she'd say, "I can never get ahead. Money just slips through my fingers." And guess what? It did. She'd get a bonus at work, and within a week, her car would break down, or some unexpected expense would appear. She thought she was cursed. But she wasn't cursed. She was programmed. We started simple. Every morning and every night, she would sit quietly and repeat, "Money flows to me easily and naturally. I am a wise steward of my finances." But here's the key, she didn't just say the words. She visualized her bank account growing. She felt the relief, the security, the freedom that financial stability would bring. She made it real in her mind first. Within 3 months, she got an unexpected promotion. A month after that, she received a tax refund she'd forgotten about. Were these coincidences? No. Her subconscious mind, now programmed with a new belief about money, began to notice opportunities she'd previously overlooked. She made better decisions. She carried herself differently. The external world simply reflected her internal shift. This is precisely why affirmations that contradict your inner conviction feel hollow. You cannot speak poverty while feeling wealthy. You cannot affirm health while identifying as sick. The subconscious mind accepts the feeling, not the words. It responds to your emotional attitude, your mental atmosphere, not the sentences you mechanically repeat. I've watched countless people stand in front of mirrors, reciting affirmations with clenched jaws and desperate eyes, wondering why nothing changes. The answer is simple. They're lying to themselves, and their subconscious knows it. There's a tension, a resistance, a silent voice saying this isn't true underneath every word they speak. Real change requires something different. It requires you to build the feeling first, then let the words emerge from that feeling. When you feel prosperous, affirmations of prosperity flow naturally. When you feel healthy, statements of health carry conviction. The feeling must precede and accompany the word, or the word is dead. Think of it this way. Your subconscious is like a garden. You cannot plant doubt and expect confidence to grow. You cannot water seeds of lack and harvest abundance. Whatever you plant in the garden of your mind, whatever you consistently feel and believe, that is what must bloom in your experience. A woman came to me years ago, trapped in a cycle of financial struggle. She had affirmations taped to her bathroom mirror, her refrigerator, her car dashboard. Yet every time she spoke them, I could hear the fear beneath her words. Her mouth said, "I am prosperous," but her heart whispered, "I'm terrified." We stopped the affirmations entirely. Instead, I asked her to simply recall a moment when she felt financially secure, even briefly. A childhood memory of abundance, perhaps, or a time when money flowed easily. I had her dwell in that feeling, expand it, breathe into it. Only when that feeling became real and present did we introduce any statements, and they were simple, aligned with what she could genuinely accept. I am open to prosperity. I welcome financial ease. Within weeks, opportunities appeared. A forgotten insurance refund. A freelance project from an old colleague. Her mother unexpectedly paid off a small debt. Nothing dramatic, but the tide had turned because her inner state had shifted first. Now, here's something that trips people up constantly. They'll say, "But Joseph, I've been thinking positively for weeks, and nothing has changed." And I have to ask them, are you thinking positively, or are you anxiously monitoring? Because there's a universe of difference between the two. True confidence in the law means you plant the seed and walk away. You don't dig it up every morning to check if it's sprouting. You don't stand over it with a flashlight at midnight, worried it's not growing fast enough. That constant checking, that anxious monitoring, that's not faith. That's fear dressed up in positive words. I've seen this pattern dozens of times. Someone affirms abundance, then immediately checks their bank account. They visualize the perfect relationship, then scroll through dating apps with desperation. They claim perfect health, then obsessively Google every symptom. The words say one thing, but the emotional state screams another. Your subconscious doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your feeling, your conviction, your inner knowing. You can repeat, "I am wealthy" 1,000 times, but if underneath those words is the feeling of lack, of desperation, of "please let this work," you're just reinforcing the very condition you're trying to escape. This is why I always emphasize the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not the hope of it, not the wanting of it, the feeling as though it's already done. When you truly accept something as true in consciousness, you stop grasping for it. There's a relaxation, a naturalness. You don't frantically chase what you already possess. Think about something you know to be true right now. Maybe you know your name. Maybe you know where you live. Notice how you feel about those facts. There's no anxiety, no desperation, no need to convince yourself. They simply are. That's the feeling you're cultivating with your desire. That same settled knowing. Now, let me address something that trips up many people at this stage. They say, "But Joseph, I can feel it for a moment, maybe during my meditation or visualization. But then I open my eyes, and doubt crashes back in. Reality seems to contradict everything I just affirmed." This is completely natural. You're not doing anything wrong. Your conscious mind has been trained by years of accepting only what the physical senses report. When you open your eyes and see the unpaid bills, the empty space where a partner should be, or the job you're still stuck in, your rational mind says, "See? Nothing's changed. This doesn't work." But here's what's actually happening. Your subconscious mind doesn't work on the same timeline as your conscious expectations. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every hour to check if it's growing, do you? You trust the natural process. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you allow it to develop beneath the surface where you cannot see. Your subconscious is doing the same thing with your impressed feeling. It's rearranging circumstances, orchestrating events, aligning opportunities. But this work is invisible to your physical eyes. It's happening in a dimension that precedes physical manifestation. So, when doubt appears, and it will, don't fight it. Don't berate yourself for being weak or failing. Simply recognize it as the old programming trying to reassert itself. It's like an old habit. If you've always taken a certain route to work, and one day you decide to take a new route, your autopilot will try to steer you back to the familiar path. That doesn't mean you're incapable of taking the new route. It just means you need to consciously choose it again and again until it becomes the new autopilot. Each time doubt surfaces, gently return to your feeling. You don't need to force anything or create some dramatic emotional high. Just touch that quiet knowing again. Feel it for even 30 seconds. That's enough. You're training your mind, building a new pattern, establishing a new neural pathway. You don't need to sit there for hours in meditation, though, if that helps you. Wonderful. But that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking for a few deliberate moments where you consciously direct your feeling state. You become the director of your inner world, not the passive audience watching whatever happens to appear on the screen. And here's something beautiful. The more you do this, the easier it becomes. Your subconscious mind begins to recognize this feeling. It becomes familiar with the frequency of your wish fulfilled. And familiar things feel safe, feel natural, feel like home. Your mind stops resisting. It stops saying, "This isn't who we are." It starts saying, "Ah, yes, this is us." Now, I want to address something that stops many people before they even begin. They say, "But Joseph, I don't know what it would feel like. I've never experienced it before." And to this I say, you've never experienced standing on the moon either, but you could imagine what the lightness might feel like, couldn't you? You could imagine the awe, the wonder, the triumph of that moment. You don't need to have experienced something to imagine its emotional texture. When you read a novel, you feel emotions about events that never happened to you. When you watch a film, you laugh and cry over fictional characters. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined event and a real one. Research has proven this again and again. Athletes who mentally rehearse their performance show the same muscle activation patterns as when they physically practice. Your feeling is the rehearsal. Your wish fulfilled is the performance you're preparing for. And just like any rehearsal, you improve with practice. Let me give you something practical. Tonight, before you sleep, and this is crucial because the moments before sleep are when your subconscious mind is most receptive, don't review your day's problems. Don't mentally list tomorrow's worries. Instead, feel one simple thing: relief. Relief that it's done. Relief that it worked out. Relief that the money came through. The relationship healed. The opportunity appeared. The health returned. Just relief. That gentle exhale of, "It's handled." This simple practice has changed more lives than I can count. Because relief is easy to access. You've felt it before. And relief implies that something was resolved, which means in your imaginal act, you're placing yourself after the solution. Relief doesn't ask you to manufacture a grand feeling. It simply asks you to exhale, to feel the gentle settling that comes when tension leaves the body. You know this sensation intimately? It's the feeling when you finally hear back from someone you were worried about. When the test results come back clear, when the conflict resolves itself without the explosion you feared. This is why relief works so beautifully in imagination. You're not pretending to feel something foreign, you're remembering something your body already knows. Let me show you how this works in practice. Suppose you're carrying financial anxiety. The bills are stacking up, the account is dwindling, and every notification sound makes your stomach clench. The natural impulse is to imagine abundance piles of money, overflowing accounts, extravagant purchases. But notice what happens in your body when you try to force that image. There's resistance. A voice that says, "This isn't real. I don't actually feel wealthy. I'm pretending." Now try something different. Imagine yourself looking at your bank statement, and instead of the usual tension, you feel relief. Just relief. A quiet, gentle relief. The kind where your shoulders drop slightly, where you close the laptop without that knot in your stomach. You're not imagining millions. You're not imagining anything specific at all. You're simply feeling what it would feel like if this particular worry were resolved. If this weight were lifted. Do you see the difference? One asks you to believe something your current experience contradicts. The other asks you to remember what peace feels like. And here's what makes this so powerful. Your subconscious doesn't need the details. It doesn't need to know exactly how much money, or when, or from where. It only needs the emotional instruction, the feeling tone, the state. When you give it relief, you give it a clear command: this problem is resolved. And the subconscious, which is the true creative power within you, begins to arrange circumstances to match that inner conviction. I've watched this principle transform lives more times than I can count. A woman who couldn't imagine herself married, but could feel the relief of no longer being asked about it at family gatherings. A man who couldn't visualize career success, but could feel the relief of no longer dreading Monday mornings. In each case, the relief was the bridge. It was real enough to embody, gentle enough to sustain, and powerful enough to shift their inner state from lack to fulfillment. Relief doesn't demand proof. It doesn't require you to manufacture enthusiasm for a reality you can't yet accept. It simply asks, what would it feel like if this particular burden were no longer on your shoulders? And that question, my friend, is accessible to anyone at any moment. Consider the woman who came to me drowning in debt. She couldn't imagine abundance. The numbers in her bank account screamed poverty. Every bill arrival triggered panic. When I asked her to feel wealthy, she laughed bitterly. How can I feel something so completely opposite to my reality? But when I asked her to feel relief from financial anxiety, something shifted in her expression. Just for a moment, I said, assume the problem is handled. Not how, not when, just handled. What happens in your chest? Your breathing? Your shoulders? She closed her eyes, her jaw unclenched. It's like I can breathe deeper, she whispered. Like this weight I've been carrying just lifts. That was her access point. Not abundance, not wealth, not prosperity. Relief. The emotional frequency of the problem being resolved without needing to visualize the mechanism. She practiced this feeling daily. Not the money itself, but the relief from its absence. Within 3 months, unexpected opportunities emerged. A forgotten tax refund, a freelance project from an old colleague, a negotiation that reduced her interest rates substantially. None of these required her to believe in miracles. They simply required her to vacate the emotional state of desperate lack long enough for new pathways to become visible. The subconscious mind responds to emotional signatures, not logical arguments. When you feel relief, you're broadcasting, the problem is solved. Your deeper mind accepts this as instruction and begins reorganizing your perceptions, intuitions, and responses accordingly. This is why relief succeeds where forced visualization often fails. Visualization asks you to accept what feels false. Relief asks you only to release what feels heavy. You don't need to build faith in what you want. You need to dissolve fear around not having it. This is a subtle but profound distinction. Most people try to pump themselves up with affirmations, repeating phrases like mantras, hoping that enough repetition will override their doubt. But doubt isn't overcome by volume. It's dissolved by understanding. When you truly understand that your consciousness is the only creative power in your life, fear loses its grip naturally. Not because you've beaten it into submission, but because you've seen through it. Think of it this way. A child is afraid of the monster under the bed. You don't cure that fear by shouting, "There is no monster, there is no monster," 50 times before sleep. You turn on the light, you show them what's actually there, you let reality replace imagination. Relief is your light switch. Every time you feel genuine relief, you're turning on the light in a dark corner of your consciousness. You're allowing yourself to see that the fear was never based in truth. It was based in a story you were telling yourself about what might happen, what it would mean, what others would think. And here's what most people miss entirely. The story is optional. You think your worry is a response to reality, but it's not. It's a habitual response to thought. You've practiced worry so many times in relation to certain subjects that it feels automatic. Money comes up, worry follows, relationships come up, anxiety tags along, health concerns appear, and panic is right there. But these are learned patterns, and what's learned can be unlearned. I'm not asking you to force yourself into a state of careless indifference. I'm asking you to notice what happens when you stop rehearsing disaster, when you gently, kindly, set down the weight of what if. What if I just didn't pick up that thought right now? What if I didn't follow that thread of worry to its catastrophic conclusion? What if I let this moment be easy? That's relief. That's the feeling. And that feeling is the secret. Because when you feel relieved, your subconscious mind receives a clear message. There is nothing to defend against. There is no threat. The problem you were bracing for doesn't exist in this awareness. And your subconscious, which is always listening, always creating, begins to rearrange your world to match that inner calm. This is why stillness is not passive. It is the most creative state you can enter. Because when you stop reacting, you start creating. When you stop resisting what is, you begin to shape what will be. I've watched this transformation occur in countless lives. A man comes to me, his business collapsing around him. He's frantic, grasping at strategies, making desperate decisions. I tell him, stop, be still, know that I am God within you. He looks at me as if I've lost my mind, but he has nothing left to lose. So he tries it. 3 days of sitting in silence each morning, 3 days of refusing to panic, 3 days of inner stillness while the outer world continues its chaos. And then something shifts, an idea comes, not forced, not manufactured through anxiety but arising naturally from the quiet, a solution he couldn't have conceived while his mind was racing. Within 2 weeks, his business begins to turn around, not because he did more, but because he became still enough to receive guidance. This is the intelligence that orchestrates your heartbeat and grows your hair while you sleep. This is the wisdom that knows how to heal a cut without conscious instruction from you. When you become still, you tap into this infinite intelligence. You align yourself with the power that creates worlds. And here's what most people miss. Your problems are never solved at the level of the problem. Never. If you're thinking about the problem, you're feeding it. You're giving it energy, substance, reality. The solution exists in a different dimension of consciousness, entirely in the dimension of stillness, of knowing, of being. Think of it this way. A radio tower broadcasts constantly, sending out signals into the air. But if your radio is filled with static, if it's tuned to the wrong frequency, you won't receive the transmission. Your inner stillness is the tuning mechanism. It clears the static. It adjusts your frequency to match the broadcast of infinite intelligence that is always transmitting solutions, guidance, and wisdom. You cannot hear this broadcast when you're agitated. You cannot receive it when you're consumed by fear. But the moment you become still, the moment you quiet the noise of the conditioned mind, the signal comes through crystal clear. This is why meditation isn't some spiritual luxury reserved for monks in mountain monasteries. It's the most practical thing you can do. When you sit quietly, when you deliberately disconnect from the external chaos, you're tuning your receiver. You're saying to the infinite intelligence within you, I'm ready now. I'm listening. And here's what happens in that silence. Here's what most people never realize. Solutions appear. Not because you're straining to figure things out, not because you're analyzing harder, but because you've stopped interfering with the natural flow of wisdom that's always been there. I've watched this happen thousands of times. A business person comes to me, frantic about a decision that seems impossible. They've made lists, consulted experts, lost sleep for weeks. I tell them, stop everything. Sit quietly for 20 minutes twice a day. Don't try to solve it. Just be still. They look at me like I've lost my mind. But those who actually do it within days, sometimes hours, the answer arrives. It comes in the shower. It comes while they're driving. It comes in that space between waking and sleeping. And they always say the same thing. It was so obvious. Why didn't I see it before? Why didn't they see it? Because they were too busy looking. They were operating from the surface mind, which can only rearrange what it already knows. But the deeper mind, your subconscious, is connected to infinite intelligence. It sees solutions you haven't even imagined. It has access to wisdom that transcends your personal experience. Think about the great inventors, the artists, the visionaries throughout history. Where did their breakthroughs come from? Edison didn't logic his way to the light bulb through pure reasoning. He was receptive to guidance. Einstein spoke constantly about insights that came to him in moments of relaxation, not strain. Mozart heard complete symphonies in his mind. He didn't construct them note by note through conscious effort. They were all tuned in. They were all receivers. And you are no different. You have that same receiver within you right now. The question is, what station are you tuned to? Because here's what most people don't realize. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge. It doesn't filter. It doesn't say, oh, that's a good thought. I'll accept that one, and that's a bad thought. I'll reject it. No. It accepts everything you feed it. Everything you think consistently. Everything you feel deeply. Everything you say to yourself when no one else is listening. If you're constantly saying, I never have enough money, your subconscious says, understood, not enough money. Let me make that your reality. If you're saying, I'm always tired, your subconscious responds, fatigue it is. I'll deliver that experience. If you're replaying scenes of rejection, failure, and disappointment in your mind, your subconscious takes that as an instruction manual for your life. It doesn't argue with you. It simply says, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Your wish is my command. This is why affirmations work, not because they're magic words, but because they reprogram the receiver. You're changing the station. You're tuning to a different frequency. And when you do that consistently, when you saturate your mind with new ideas, your outer world begins to reflect that inner shift. I've seen it happen thousands of times. A man comes to me, broken, convinced the world is against him, and I tell him, the world isn't against you. Your own mind is against you. You've been broadcasting lack, and the universe has been responding in kind. So we start with something simple. Every night before sleep, he repeats, I am prospered in all my ways. Wealth flows to me easily and naturally. At first, his conscious mind rebels. It says, this is nonsense. Look at your bank account. Look at your debts. But he persists, night after night, and slowly, imperceptibly, something shifts. New ideas come. An opportunity he would have missed before suddenly catches his attention. A conversation leads to a contact. A contact leads to a contract. And within months, sometimes weeks, his entire financial situation transforms not because the outer world changed first, but because his inner world did. This is the law. This is how it works. You are always tuning into something. The only question is what? Let me be absolutely clear about something. You don't drift into success. You don't accidentally stumble into health, wealth, or happiness. These things come by deliberate mental tuning. And here's what most people miss. You're already doing the work. You're already impressing your subconscious mind every single day. The tragedy is that most of you are impressing it with the wrong images. Think about worry for a moment. What is worry but negative goal setting? When you worry, you're vividly imagining what you don't want. You're running mental movies of failure, disaster, and loss. And your subconscious doesn't judge these images, it simply accepts them and works to bring them into reality. The worrier is a powerful creator. They just create in the wrong direction. I've seen this pattern countless times. A man worries about losing his job. He pictures himself unemployed, struggling, rejected. Day after day, he feeds this image into his subconscious mind. And what happens? He becomes tense at work. His performance suffers. He unconsciously sabotages himself. Eventually, the very thing he feared comes to pass. And he says, see, I knew it would happen. But he doesn't realize he made it happen through the consistent use of mental imagery. Your subconscious mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant will grow. Plant seeds of success, and you harvest success. Plant seeds of failure, and you harvest failure. The soil doesn't discriminate. It will grow weeds just as readily as roses. This is why guarding your thoughts is not optional, it's essential. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Joseph, I can't control every thought that pops into my head. And you're right. Random thoughts will come. That's natural. But here's what you can control: which thoughts you dwell on, which thoughts you feed, which thoughts you repeat over and over until they become convictions. You see, a passing thought has little power, but a thought that you entertain, elaborate on, and emotionalize that thought becomes a command to your subconscious mind. That's the difference between a fleeting worry and a deep-seated fear. One passes through your mind like a cloud, the other settles in and starts directing your life. This is why I constantly emphasize repetition. You must repeatedly impress your subconscious with the thoughts you want to manifest. Once is not enough. Twice is not enough. Your subconscious mind learns through repetition, through persistence, through the steady drip of water that eventually carves through stone. Think of a farmer planting seeds. Does he plant them once and walk away? No. He waters them daily. He tends the soil. He returns again and again, nurturing what he's planted until it breaks through the surface and reaches toward the sun. Your thoughts are seeds. Your subconscious is the soil. And you must water those seeds with constant, faithful repetition. I've seen people try this work for a day or two, then abandon it when instant miracles don't appear. They say, it doesn't work, but they never gave it a chance to work. They planted the seed and immediately dug it up to see if it was growing. That's not faith. That's doubt masquerading as curiosity. The subconscious responds to persistence. It responds to the person who says the same affirmation 50 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. Not mechanically, not with dead lips and a wandering mind, but with feeling, with conviction, with the emotional intensity that makes the impression deep and lasting. When you repeat an idea with feeling, you're not just saying words. You're creating grooves in your consciousness. You're establishing pathways. You're training your mind where to go, what to believe, how to respond. The more you travel these pathways, the more automatic they become. This is why I tell people, make your mental work a habit. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait until you feel like it. Set aside specific times each day, morning and night at minimum, where you deliberately impress your subconscious with your desires. Make it as regular as brushing your teeth or eating breakfast. And here's something crucial. When you repeat your affirmations, you must feel them as already true. Don't say, "I will be prosperous." Say, "I am prosperous." Don't say, "I hope to be healthy." Say, "I am healthy and whole right now." The subconscious doesn't understand future tense. It only knows the eternal now. When you claim something as present reality, even if your senses deny it, you're giving your subconscious a clear instruction. You're telling it, "This is what's true. Make my outer world match this inner conviction." I know this challenges logic. Your rational mind protests. It says, "But I'm not healthy. Look at my body. Look at my circumstances." Yes, your current conditions may contradict your affirmation, but conditions are effects, not causes. They're yesterday's thoughts made visible. When you persist in new thinking, you create new conditions. Think of it like steering a ship. You don't judge where the ship is right now and then throw up your hands in despair because you're off course. You acknowledge the position, yes, but then you immediately adjust the rudder toward your destination. You keep that wheel turned in the direction you want to go, regardless of the waves, regardless of the wind, regardless of how far off course you drifted yesterday. Your mind is that rudder. Your habitual thinking is the direction you're steering. Now, I want to address something that trips up so many people. They say to me, "Joseph, I've been thinking positively for a week now, and nothing has changed. This doesn't work." A week. They gave it a week. Let me ask you something. If you planted a seed in your garden and came back the next day demanding to see a full-grown tree, what would happen? Nothing. The seed would still be germinating beneath the soil, invisible to your impatient eyes. Does that mean the seed isn't working? Does that mean the laws of nature have failed? Of course not. Growth takes time. There's an interval between planting and harvest, between conception and birth, between the impression and the expression. Your subconscious mind works the same way. When you impress a new idea upon it through repetition and feeling, that idea begins to work beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. It's reorganizing circumstances. It's attracting opportunities. It's preparing the way. But you don't see all this underground activity. You only see the conditions in front of you, which are still reflecting your old habitual thinking. This is where faith comes in. Not blind faith, not religious faith necessarily, but faith in the law. Faith that what you impress upon your subconscious mind must, by law, be expressed in your experience. You wouldn't plant a seed and then dig it up every day to check if it's growing, would you? That would kill it. Yet this is exactly what people do with their mental seeds. They plant an idea, they nurture it for a day or two, and then they dig it up with doubt. Let me check if it's working. Let me see if there's any evidence yet. And in that moment of doubt, they've uprooted the very thing they were trying to grow. The moment you begin to question, the moment you begin to worry, the moment you go looking for proof in the outer world, you've broken the spell. You've interrupted the creative process. You've told your subconscious mind, "Never mind, I don't really believe this." And your subconscious, ever faithful, ever obedient, says, "All right then. If you don't believe it, neither do I." This is why the mystics throughout history have spoken about the importance of silence. They weren't being poetic. They were teaching you a fundamental law of manifestation. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every day to see if it's sprouting. You leave it alone. You trust the intelligence of nature to do its work beneath the surface, where you cannot see. Your desires work the same way. Once impressed upon your subconscious mind, they need time to germinate in the invisible realm before they can emerge in the visible world. But if you keep going back to check on them, if you keep digging them up with doubt and fear and impatience, you destroy them before they ever have a chance to take root. I'm going to share something with you that might sound radical, but it's absolutely true. The less you think about your desire after you've impressed it on your subconscious, the faster it will manifest. This doesn't mean you forget about it completely. It means you've handed it over. You've given it to the deeper part of yourself that knows how to bring it forth. You've let go. Letting go is not giving up. Letting go is giving over. It's the difference between abandoning a project and delegating it to someone far more capable than you. Your conscious mind cannot manufacture your desire. It can only worry about it, doubt it, complicate it, but your subconscious mind connected as it is to infinite intelligence, knows exactly how to orchestrate the circumstances, the people, the events that will bring your desire into your experience. So your task is beautifully simple. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and leave the how to the infinite intelligence that never sleeps. When you try to manipulate the process, when you scheme and control and force outcomes, you're actually blocking the very flow you're trying to initiate. You become like someone standing at the faucet, demanding water while keeping the tap closed. I remember a woman who came to me desperate for reconciliation with her estranged daughter. Years of silence had built walls between them. She had tried everything her conscious mind could devise: letters that went unanswered, gifts that were returned, mediators who failed. Every attempt only seemed to deepen the divide. I asked her a simple question. Can you feel, right now, what it would be like to embrace your daughter? Can you hear her voice saying, "I love you, Mom"? Can you sense that warmth of connection restored? She closed her eyes, and tears began to flow. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I can feel it." "Then that is your only work," I told her. "Feel that feeling every night before sleep. Don't plot, don't plan. Don't rehearse what you'll say. Just feel the reality of your reconciliation as though it has already happened." 3 weeks later, her daughter called. No reason she could explain. Just felt the impulse to reach out. Within months, their relationship was not only restored but deeper than it had ever been. Did this woman orchestrate that phone call? Did she manipulate circumstances? No. She simply aligned herself with the feeling of her wish fulfilled, and the subconscious mind, with its infinite intelligence, arranged everything else. The timing, the circumstances, the softening of hearts, all of it unfolded in ways her conscious mind never could have engineered. This is what I mean when I say you must get out of your own way. Your conscious mind is a terrible magician but a wonderful observer. Use it to choose your desire, to define what you want clearly. But then, step aside. Let the subconscious mind do what it does best: create. You see, the conscious mind is the architect. It draws the blueprint. It says, "This is what I want. This is the life I desire to live." But once that blueprint is drawn, the architect doesn't pick up the hammer and nails. The architect doesn't lay the foundation or build the walls. That's the job of the builder, and your subconscious mind is the most skilled builder in existence. Think about it. When you plant a seed in the ground, do you dig it up every hour to check if it's growing? Do you pull on the sprout to make it grow faster? Of course not. You'd kill it. You plant the seed, you water it, you give it sunlight, and then you trust the intelligence within that seed to do its work. The same principle applies to your desires. When you've impressed your desire upon your subconscious mind through feeling and conviction, you've planted the seed. Now leave it alone. Stop checking. Stop doubting. Stop asking, "Is it working? When will it come? Why hasn't it manifested yet?" Every time you do that, you're digging up the seed. You're telling your subconscious mind that you don't really believe, that you don't really trust. And here's what most people don't understand. The subconscious mind works in its own time, in its own way. It doesn't operate according to your schedule or your limited understanding of how things should unfold. It has access to infinite intelligence, to channels and possibilities you cannot see with your conscious mind. Your job is not to figure out the how. Your job is to maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I've seen people drive themselves into anxiety trying to control every detail of their manifestation. They want to know exactly how it will happen, when it will happen, who will be involved. They create elaborate plans and then become frustrated when reality doesn't follow their script. This is the conscious mind trying to do the subconscious mind's job, and it never works. Let me tell you something profound. The moment you release your desire to your subconscious mind with complete faith, something shifts in the universe. You become magnetic to your desire. Opportunities appear. People show up. Circumstances align. And often, it happens in ways you never could have orchestrated with your conscious planning. So choose with your conscious mind, then surrender with faith. This is the dance of creation. Now, let me address something that troubles many people, the question of worthiness. You might be thinking, this all sounds wonderful, but am I worthy of such abundance? Am I deserving of health, wealth, and happiness? Let me be crystal clear about this. Worthiness is not something you earn. It's your birthright. You didn't have to earn the right to be born. You didn't have to prove yourself worthy before you took your first breath. The universe didn't examine your credentials before giving you life. The question isn't whether you're worthy. The question is whether you believe you're worthy. And here's the liberating truth: your subconscious mind doesn't judge worthiness. It simply accepts what you impress upon it. The feeling of unworthiness is itself just a belief, planted by past experiences, by authority figures who meant well but didn't understand, by a society that often teaches limitation rather than possibility. I've worked with people who grew up in poverty, who were told they'd never amount to anything, who carried deep wounds from childhood. And I've seen these same people transform their entire lives when they finally accepted one simple truth: they are expressions of the infinite, and the infinite knows no limitation, no unworthiness, no lack. Your consciousness is the only thing that determines what you experience. Not your past, not your bank account, not your education, not what anyone ever said about you. The moment you begin to feel worthy, truly worthy, your subconscious begins to create circumstances that match that feeling. I knew a woman who couldn't accept compliments. Every time someone praised her, she'd deflect it, minimize it, or change the subject. This was a clear sign of unworthiness deeply embedded in her consciousness. We worked together, and she began a simple practice, looking in the mirror each morning and saying, "I am a beloved child of the infinite. I am worthy of all good things." At first, she felt like she was lying, but she persisted. Within months, not only did her self-image transform, but opportunities began flowing to her that she'd never imagined possible. This story illustrates a fundamental truth: your subconscious mind doesn't judge whether your thoughts are true or false. It simply accepts what you habitually impress upon it. If you tell it you're unworthy, it will create circumstances that reflect unworthiness. If you tell it you're blessed and prosperous, it will move heaven and earth to make that your reality. Now, some of you might be thinking, "But Joseph, what about the bad things that happen? What about illness, loss, tragedy? Are you saying I caused those with my thoughts?" This is where we must be careful not to oversimplify. Life contains variables beyond our individual consciousness. We live in a world of other minds, natural laws, and collective consciousness. However, what we can control is our response to circumstances and our habitual mental atmosphere. I once worked with a man who lost everything in a business failure. His partner had embezzled funds, and he was left with nothing but debt. He came to me bitter and broken, convinced that life had singled him out for punishment. I said to him, "What happened to you was unfortunate, but what you do with this moment will determine your entire future. You can rehearse this tragedy in your mind daily and program yourself for continued failure, or you can begin now to build a new mental foundation." He made a choice that day. Instead of dwelling on what was lost, he began affirming, "Divine intelligence guides me to my true prosperity. I am learning valuable lessons that will make me wiser and stronger. My best days are ahead of me." He disciplined his mind to reject the bitter rehearsal of betrayal and instead focus on gratitude for what remained: his health, his knowledge, his experience, his capacity to rebuild. Within 3 years, he had started a new venture that became more successful than his first business ever was. But more importantly, he had transformed as a person. He told me, "Losing everything was the greatest gift I ever received, because it forced me to discover the power within myself. I had been building on sand, on external circumstances and other people. Now, I build on rock, on the principles of mind." This man's story illustrates a fundamental principle. External circumstances are never the true foundation of success or happiness. They are merely the outpicturing of your mental states. When you build your life on the rock of spiritual understanding, on the recognition that your mind is the true cause of all your experiences, you build something that cannot be shaken by the winds of fortune. I have seen this truth demonstrated countless times. A woman once came to me devastated because her husband had left her after 20 years of marriage. She felt her life was over. She said, "Dr. Murphy, I invested everything in this relationship. What do I have now?" I said to her, "You have the same thing you had before you met your husband, the creative power of your own mind. You have the ability to build a new life, perhaps even more fulfilling than the one you lost. But this time, build it on the understanding that your happiness comes from within, not from another person." She began to work with this principle. Each day she affirmed, "I am whole, complete, and perfect. Divine love fills my heart and guides my life. I attract wonderful relationships and experiences. She stopped defining herself through her former marriage and began to discover her own identity, her own power, her own creative capacity. Within a year, she had started a successful business, developed deep friendships, and found a new romantic relationship, but this time from a position of wholeness rather than need. She told me, "The greatest gift my ex-husband gave me was leaving, because it forced me to find myself." You see, when you depend on external things for your sense of security and well-being, you live in constant fear. You fear losing your money, your position, your relationships, your health. But when you know that the true source of all good is within you and your connection to infinite intelligence, then you are truly free. You can enjoy external things without being enslaved by them. This does not mean you become passive or indifferent to the world around you. Rather, you become more effective because you are no longer acting from desperation and fear. You act from confidence and power. You know that if you lose one opportunity, your creative mind can generate another. If one door closes, you have the power to open new doors through the activity of your thought. You're not dependent on external circumstances. You're not at the mercy of the economy, the job market, or other people's opinions. You have within you an inexhaustible source of creative ideas, opportunities, and solutions. This is the truth about you. This is your spiritual heritage. When you truly understand this principle, rejection loses its power over you. You see it for what it really is, not a statement about your worth, but simply information. Sometimes it's information that a particular path isn't right for you. Sometimes it's information that you need to refine your approach. And sometimes it's simply information that the timing isn't aligned. I've watched people transform their entire lives by changing how they respond to no. Instead of collapsing in defeat, they pause and ask, "What is this teaching me? Where is this redirecting me?" They understand that their subconscious mind is always working for their highest good, and that sometimes what appears as rejection is actually protection. Think about the person who didn't get the job they desperately wanted, only to discover 6 months later that the company went bankrupt. Think about the relationship that ended, which cleared the space for a partnership that brought genuine happiness. Think about the business deal that fell through, which prevented a massive financial loss. Your subconscious mind sees further than your conscious mind. It knows things you don't know. When you trust it completely, when you maintain your faith in the face of apparent rejection, you allow it to guide you toward outcomes that exceed what you consciously imagined. This doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you stop taking action. It means you act with a different quality of consciousness. You act with certainty that you are being guided. You act knowing that every experience, whether it looks positive or negative on the surface, is working for your ultimate benefit. Practice this tonight before you sleep. Think of a recent rejection or disappointment. Instead of rehearsing the pain of it, say to yourself, "This is redirecting me toward something better. My subconscious wisdom is guiding me to my true good. I trust the process completely." Feel the relief that comes with this new interpretation. Feel the burden lifting from your shoulders. Now, some of you might be thinking, "But what if I've tried this before? What if I've attempted to reinterpret my dreams and nothing changed?" And I understand this concern completely. But here's what you must understand. The difference between trying and truly believing is vast. When you merely try, you're still holding on to doubt. You're still keeping one foot in the old interpretation. But when you truly believe, when you feel it in your bones, that's when transformation occurs. Let me share something profound with you. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to your words alone. It responds to the feeling behind those words. You can say affirmations all day long, but if you don't feel them, if you don't embody them, they're just empty sounds. When you reinterpret a disturbing dream, you must feel the new interpretation. You must let it sink deep into your being. You must allow yourself to experience the peace, the relief, the confidence that comes with understanding that your deeper mind is working for you, not against you. Think of it this way. Imagine you receive a letter written in a foreign language. At first glance, you might assume it's bad news because you don't understand it. But then someone translates it for you, and you discover it's actually wonderful news from an old friend. The letter hasn't changed. The words are still the same. What changed? Your interpretation, your understanding. And with that new understanding comes a completely different emotional response. This is exactly what we're doing with dreams. We're learning to read the true language of the subconscious. We're becoming translators of our own inner wisdom. And the more fluent you become in this language, the more you'll recognize that every dream, even the most disturbing one, carries a message of growth, protection, or guidance. I've seen this work miracles in people's lives. I've watched individuals who were tormented by recurring nightmares find complete peace once they understood what those dreams were really saying. One woman told me she had dreamed for years of being trapped in a small room. She lived in fear of this dream, but when she learned to reinterpret it, she realized her subconscious was showing her that she had been limiting herself in her waking life. The dream wasn't punishment, it was revelation. Once she understood this, the dream stopped, and she began expanding her life in beautiful ways. Your dreams will change as you change. They are living reflections of your inner world, shifting and evolving with every thought pattern you transform, every limiting belief you release, every new conviction you plant in the garden of your mind. I've witnessed people who, after weeks of nightly affirmations before sleep, reported that their dreams became more vivid, more positive, more filled with scenes of success and harmony. This isn't coincidence, it's the natural result of saturating your subconscious with constructive imagery before entering the sleep state, when the critical conscious mind releases its grip and your subconscious becomes supremely impressionable. One businessman told me he had recurring dreams of giving presentations where he would forget his words and stand frozen in embarrassment. These dreams reflected his deep-seated fear of public speaking, but he began a simple practice. Every night before sleep, he would visualize himself speaking confidently, seeing approving faces in the audience, feeling calm and articulate. Within 2 weeks, the anxiety dreams stopped. Within a month, his actual presentations improved dramatically. The subconscious had accepted the new pattern. Your dreams can also be a testing ground for your desires. Before making major decisions, turn them over to your subconscious before sleep. Ask for guidance, for clarity, for wisdom. You'll often wake with answers, or your dreams will present scenarios that reveal your true feelings about the situation. A woman considering a job change asked her subconscious for guidance before sleep. That night, she dreamed of walking through a door into a bright, spacious room filled with light and interesting people. The symbolism was clear. Her subconscious was affirming the move. She took the position and found it to be exactly what she needed for her growth. The subconscious mind speaks in the language of symbols because symbols bypass the critical, analytical faculty of the conscious mind. They slip past our defenses and speak directly to the deeper layers of awareness. Think about the power of national flags, religious icons, corporate logos. These symbols evoke immediate emotional responses precisely because they communicate with the subconscious. Your personal dream symbols work the same way, but they're customized to your unique psychological landscape. I want you to understand something crucial here. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and an actual physical experience. This is why visualization is so extraordinarily powerful. When you repeatedly imagine yourself succeeding, your subconscious accepts this as fact and begins to align your reality accordingly. Athletes have known this for decades. The champion visualizes the perfect performance before stepping onto the field. The surgeon mentally rehearses the procedure. The musician sees and hears the flawless execution before touching the instrument. They're programming their subconscious for success. You can do the exact same thing in any area of your life. Before an important conversation, see it going beautifully. Before a presentation, experience yourself speaking with confidence and clarity. Before a challenging task, feel yourself completing it with ease and excellence. The subconscious takes these mental rehearsals and treats them as instructions. It says, this is what we're doing. Let me prepare the way. It begins to adjust your physiology, your perception, your intuition, all working together to manifest what you've impressed upon it. Here's where most people go wrong. They visualize once or twice and expect miracles. But remember, the subconscious learns through repetition. You must impress your desire upon it consistently, with feeling, with conviction. Make it a daily practice, a sacred ritual. Every night before sleep, when your subconscious is most receptive, spend 10 minutes in vivid imagination. See your goal as already accomplished. Feel the emotions of achievement. Hear the sounds associated with your success. Engage all your senses. Make it real in your mind, and your subconscious will make it real in your world. This isn't fantasy. This isn't escape from reality. This is working with the deepest creative mechanism within you. You're not pretending something is true when it isn't. You're impressing a new pattern upon the subconscious so that it can bring forth the corresponding external reality. Now, I want to address something that comes up repeatedly in my counseling sessions. People ask me, Dr. Murphy, how long will this take? When will I see results? And I understand this question. We live in a world where we want immediate gratification, instant outcomes. But the subconscious mind operates on its own timetable, and this is where patience becomes not just a virtue, but a necessity. The creative intelligence within you is working day and night, orchestrating circumstances, arranging meetings, dissolving obstacles. But it requires consistent cooperation from your conscious mind. You cannot plant a seed today and dig it up tomorrow to see if it's growing. The farmer doesn't stand over his field, anxious and doubtful, demanding to see sprouts within hours. He trusts the creative law of growth. He knows that beneath the surface, invisible processes are unfolding according to divine order. Your demonstration, whether it's health, prosperity, or harmonious relationships, will manifest when the subconscious impression is complete, when the mental equivalent is fully formed. This might be days, weeks, or months. But here's what I can promise you. The time will pass anyway. 6 months from now will arrive, whether you've been impressing your subconscious with faith and expectancy, or whether you've been feeding it fear and limitation. I've seen demonstrations occur with remarkable speed. A woman came to me completely demoralized about her financial situation. She learned these principles, began her mental work with dedication, and within 3 weeks received an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew existed. I've also worked with individuals whose demonstrations took longer. But when they arrived, they were so perfect, so complete, that the waiting period seemed brief in retrospect. The key is this: don't make the demonstration your sole focus. Make the mental work itself your focus. Enjoy the practice of prayer. Delight in the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Take pleasure in knowing you're cooperating with infinite intelligence. When you do this, you're living in the end result, even before it manifests physically. You're experiencing the joy now, not postponing it until some future date. This is what the mystics throughout the ages have taught. They didn't speak of sacrifice and suffering as prerequisites for spiritual growth. They spoke of entering into the joy of the Lord now, of feeling the reality of answered prayer before the physical evidence appeared. You see, when you live in the assumption that your prayer is already answered, you're not pretending. You're not engaging in wishful thinking or self-deception. You're aligning yourself with a fundamental principle of consciousness. Your feeling is the secret. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the force that brings your desire into manifestation. Let me share something that happened with a woman who came to one of my lectures years ago. She had been trying to sell her home for over a year. Every day she would worry about it. Every day she would look at that for sale sign and feel frustrated, anxious, defeated. The longer the house sat unsold, the more desperate she became. And of course, that desperation was precisely what kept the sale from happening. I told her what I'm telling you now: assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That night, before she fell asleep, instead of worrying about her unsold house, she imagined her real estate agent calling with wonderful news. She felt the relief. She felt the joy. She imagined signing the papers, handing over the keys, depositing the check. And most importantly, she gave thanks for the sale that had already occurred in consciousness. Within 3 days, 3 days after months of nothing, she received an unexpected offer, above her asking price, from buyers who wanted to close quickly. Was this coincidence? Was this luck? No. This was law. This was the subconscious mind, impressed with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, moving heaven and earth to make the outer circumstances conform to the inner conviction. You have this same power available to you right now. Not tomorrow, not after you've struggled more or suffered more or proven yourself worthy. Right now. This moment. You can begin to feel differently about your situation. You can begin to assume that what you desire already exists in the invisible realm of consciousness and is now pressing to become manifest in your physical world. You see, the imagination is not a frivolous faculty. It is the most potent creative force you possess. When you imagine something vividly, when you feel it as real, you are actually creating a mold, a pattern in consciousness, and the universal creative power flows into that mold, filling it, giving it form and substance in the three-dimensional world. This is why I have always said, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Don't merely think about what you want. Don't just visualize it as something distant, something out there that you hope to get someday. No, assume it, feel it. Live in the conviction that it is already yours in consciousness, and therefore must manifest in form. When you lie down to sleep tonight, do not review the problems of the day. Do not rehearse tomorrow's worries. Instead, go to sleep feeling satisfied, feeling fulfilled, feeling grateful that your desire has already been accomplished. This is not pretending. This is not foolish optimism. This is scientific prayer. You are impressing your subconscious mind with the reality of your fulfilled desire, and your subconscious knows only one activity: to manifest outwardly what is impressed upon it inwardly. I have seen this principle work for thousands of people. I have watched marriages healed, businesses transformed, health restored, all through this simple yet profound practice of dwelling in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The universe does not withhold from you. You withhold from yourself by maintaining the old consciousness, the old feeling, the old assumption of lack or limitation. Right now, in this very moment, you can make a decision. You can decide that from this point forward, you will no longer consent to the tyranny of circumstances. You will no longer bow down to the testimony of the senses. You will no longer accept the verdict of the world as final. Instead, you will turn within. You will claim your good. You will assume the consciousness of the person who already has what you desire. And as you do this, as you persist in this new assumption, something wonderful begins to happen. The outer world, which is always plastic to the inner conviction, begins to rearrange itself to conform to your new state of consciousness. This is not theory. This is not speculation. This is the immutable law by which this universe operates. And you have been using this law your entire life, whether you knew it or not. The question is not whether the law works. The question is, are you going to use it consciously, deliberately, or will you continue to use it by default, creating through unconscious habit rather than deliberate intention? Now, I want to address something that troubles many people when they first encounter these truths. They say, but I've tried this, I've visualized, I've affirmed, and nothing happened. And when I hear this, I know immediately what has occurred. They have engaged in mental exercises while maintaining their old state of consciousness. They have said words while feeling the opposite. They have visualized success while believing in failure. You see, it is not the visualization itself that creates. It is not the affirmation itself that manifests. It is the state of consciousness from which these actions arise that determines your experience. You can visualize wealth all day long, but if underneath that visualization you feel poor, if you feel unworthy, if you feel that wealth is for others but not for you, then the feeling of poverty is your real state, and poverty is what you will continue to experience. The secret, then, is not in the doing, it is in the being. It is not what you do, but what you are that determines your world. And what you are is determined by what you feel yourself to be. This is why I have placed such tremendous emphasis on feeling. Your feeling is the secret. Your feeling is the creative agent. Your feeling is the acceptance or rejection of anything and everything in your world. When you can maintain the feeling of your wish fulfilled, when you can sustain that feeling until it becomes natural, until it becomes your predominant state, then the manifestation must follow. Not because you deserve it, not because you've been good, not because you've worked hard, but because it is law. The outer must always conform to the inner. Your world is your consciousness objectified, and so I say to you now, with all the conviction born of understanding and experience, whatever you desire you can have. Whatever you wish to become, you can be. Whatever state you would occupy, you can occupy. But you must be willing to give up your current state. You must be willing to abandon the old man and put on the new.